Hello, this is Jonathan with IVolLive. In today's video, I'm going to show the different ways to access historical volatility metrics and charts within IVolLive. So I just logged in prior to this recording to my IVolLive account. Here is the screen you'll see when you log in. To get to the different historical volatility metrics, a couple different ways to do so. I'll start off here in IVolLive. So this is our recently updated IVolLive interface. And when the screen pulls up, what you'll see is we have a couple different custom screens and then some preset screens. So you're always able to run these preset screens here. This is going to show you, for example, here's a historical volatility figure. So this is the implied volatility mean versus the 20-day historical volatility. So this is looking at the future versus the past. So this is one way that we have a pre-built-in screener for historical volatility. You can run this, past versus future against any of the indices or groupings that we cover. And that's all US, that's Latin America, that's Canada, that's Europe, that's India, and Canada here, Toronto Stock Exchange. The other thing you could do is if you come to this custom tab, you can choose what group you want to run against. So if I change this for an example to the Dow Jones, DJX, you'll see that we're running a screen against the Dow, and some of the default columns here are HV20, so you can sort in ascending or descending order for this particular group, which is the Dow. So the highest historical volatility is Intel, and then 3M, Caterpillar, and so on. The other way to measure and analyze different historical volatility measures, you could always just type in HV. And depending on if you're a short-term, intermediate term, or long-term trader, these are the different categories that we have for you to choose from. These are historical volatility. This is historical volatility high-low. So what was the low and what was the high over the past 120 days, 150 days, 180 days, 30 days. HVP, so HVP is historical volatility percentile. So this is telling you, at what percentage of the time has the underlying stock traded at the current historical volatility reading. So anything, the higher the number, the more abnormal the current historical volatility reading is. So you can toggle any of these from red to green, and then you could hit apply. So I could do here, I could hit apply, and this will apply for this one tab. For this session, or I could do save as default, and this will apply anytime I bring up a new tab. So let's go ahead and hit apply. You can see those measures have now been added to my IVolLive tab here on my stock monitor. So this is one way to look at it. Then if I want to analyze a specific stock in the historical volatility charts for that stock, a couple different ways to do that. Let's use Intel as our example. What you'll see over here on the left is the fundamentals. So this is things like bid-ask, price, implied volatility. Here's our historical volatility here, which you can see is almost double what the current implied volatility is. Then we have our options chain down here. Over here is one way we have historical volatility charts. So with IVolLive, we go as far back as 5 years on underlying price, on implied volatility, and on historical volatility. We also go as low as one day or 24 hours for the charts. So the way to read this legend is we have our price is in blue, our implied volatility is in green, and then our historical volatility is in orange. And you can toggle between HV30, HV60, HV90, HV120. We'll give that a bit of time to load, but that's how you're able to decide, what measures you want to analyze in terms of historical volatility. Then over here in the charts, you could see when you click on charts, the charts tab, you're also able to access charts here. If you want to pull up a brand new tab, you can pull up charts. But here we have a spot price, excuse me, of SPX. And we have an IV index of SPX. But let's say we wanted to look at Intel for an example. So we could pull up the spot price for Intel. And we could just tell it that we want to look at the past, 1 year of data for Intel spot price. and that'll pull up. And now the other thing we could do though is we could pull up the historical volatility for Intel. So let's do historical volatility, INTC, over that same 1 year time frame. And then here we could choose, we want to look at HV10, 20, 30, etc. So let's go to HV20. All right. That's going to show us the past 20 trading days of historical volatility. So you can see as Intel's price has been going down, its historical volatility has been rising higher, which makes sense, right? Because that's the intuitive relationship. Other cool things you could do from this chart is you can expand this, and now you could compare. We could still do Intel, and we could say, okay, let's compare the HV20 to the HV10, right? Shorter term. And anytime you want to see your legend, just click on the color, and you'll see this rubric. HV20 is in brown. HV10 is in red, so we could see kind of, HV10 is a bit more jagged. We could also compare that to another one. For these charts, what's great about them is you could do up to 8 different inputs on one chart. So I could compare, all these different HVs, and you could see, kind of the longer the time frame, HV60, the flatter the historical volatility is. The shorter the time frame, the more jagged volatility is, which makes sense because it's occurring over a shorter period of time, especially in which Intel has been volatile. So this is a really, really neat tool. Again, that's another way to analyze historical volatility. There's a lot of other charts, but for historical volatility, this where you want to analyze various historical volatilities against each other, this is an excellent chart. So then if we come back to Intel here, see what we got. As I record this video, it is market close, and so all of our numbers are updating. So we'll have our historical volatility. There it is. So here is our HV20 versus our implied volatility 30. So we have Intel's price in blue, which has dipped, and then historical volatility here in orange has skyrocketed. What's interesting here is we have a discrepancy between historical volatility and applied volatility. So this means it's going to break one way or the other, either, because these lines have become highly, highly divergent, which never lasts, as you can see, over the history. And again, you can zoom into 24 hours or as far out as 5 years. So those are other ways. And in terms of, if you want to look at high lows, like you could see over the last 5 years, this was the high point for historical volatility, which was March 3rd, 2020, kind of the depths of COVID. And then you can come down here and you can see like these have been the low point. This is support for kind of the support line. If I was drawing a support line, this would be like the support line, which you can do, by the way. You can come here, go red, and we can draw this 5-year support line here. We can bulk it up a bit. We can draw our arrows, make it thick so we can see it. And then we know, what would be interesting here to me is if historical volatility came and eventually broke below that level, which is the support for 5 years. What was interesting here, this was kind of range bound for a bit with historical volatility. Let me draw this line. So you can see, for, from 2018 up until COVID, historical volatility was relatively range bound, and so was Intel stock. And then when COVID hit, this thing shot, historical volatility shot higher as price crashed, right? So this is that inverse relationship that I was talking about. So these are, really cool ways to analyze historical volatility using the updated IVolLive. You can also apply technical indicators here as well. We could add, any of these indicators that are in alphabetical order. Bollinger Bands are very popular. Relative Strength Index is very popular. So those are some of the things that you can implement with historical volatility. This has been Jonathan with IVolLive. Until next time, happy trading.